What's up, Rebel Nation? It's Cam Wicker from the Rebel Walk, co-host of the podcast that you're tuned into right now, the Rebel Talk. In this week's episode, Zach and I are back with another Ole Miss sports weekly recap, and we begin the episode talking about the NFL draft and the program record of Ole Miss players that got drafted this past weekend. After that, we move into college basketball and talk about Chris Beard and his recent pickup on the men's side of things. Ending the episode, we talk about college baseball and how Ole Miss took two again the series against Vandy this weekend on Double Decker Weekend. Even though winning that series, Ole Miss did not move in the rankings. We talk a little bit about that as well, just our overall thoughts on Ole Miss baseball. With that being said, leave a like and comment on this episode and enjoy the show. Welcome back, Rebel. You're listening to another episode of the Rebel Talk presented by the Rebel Walk. I'm Cam Wicker, and as always, I'm here with Zach Moreth. Today, we're here to talk a little bit of Ole Miss sports just from the past week. Trying to get you guys another recap episode in. Try to work on getting another guest on soon. We don't have anything quite in the works right now, but had a handful there in a row, so we're trying to put a little gap in between there, and we'll try to get somebody on, maybe a baseball guy. It seems like we haven't really had a baseball guy on the pod yet, so we'll try to do that soon for you guys. But today we're gonna hop into just the recent events this past weekend. Big weekend for Ole Miss sports, Zach. Starting off with the NFL draft. Record amount of number of picks for the Ole Miss draft in the common era of Ole Miss drafted players. Seemed like you were probably going to have at least one guy drafted on the first day. The Giants, like we said in the last podcast, could get frisky. Someone like the Giants, the Browns, the Saints trade up into that first round and take Jackson Dart. And that's exactly what happens. Zach Jackson Dart gets taken by the New York Giants, the 25th pick in the first round of the NFL draft. We'll talk a little about Walter in a second, but I want to hop into Jackson Dart right away because this was a controversial pick throughout the weekend. We all know the Shedeur Sanders stuff throughout the weekend, sliding to day 3. We all know the Mel Kiper breakdown on live television. Jackson Dart was not supposed to go here in the eyes of the media and the eyes of football watchers. But now the more that you look at the Jackson Dart tape and the more people break it down, especially the Giants fans, they seem really excited about this pick.
Yeah.
This is a really good pick for the Giants. You got the guy you wanted at 3 with Abdul Carter, and then you went and got your quarterback. And then Brian Dable says right away, as soon as the pick's done, he said Russell Wilson's our starting quarterback. Jackson doesn't have to worry about starting right away. Just your overall thoughts on this pick, what your hopes are for Jackson going into the season, and what you think will happen closer to the end of this season with Jackson.
Yeah, the funniest thing for me, Cam, is there was a video. I don't know when they took it, but Jackson Dart was like talking to the media guy, and he was like, "Yeah, so the NFL player who I want to play with the most is Jameis Winston." I mean, the fact that that's actually working out is hysterical, and Jameis is one of a kind, right? He's been around the league for a while, has experience, but kind of a silly dude at the same time. Then Russell Wilson, a little bit corny at times, for all those who saw the Broncos country thing, but good player, Super Bowl contending quarterback earlier in his career, obviously, but he has that experience. He's going to be a veteran on that team. And Brian Dable runs a really solid offense when, the pieces are in play to actually be effective. So excited for the situation that Dart's in. And I don't know about the fans who are watching this, but I mean, as that pick went in, even my heart was racing, and I got nothing to do with the guy. So I can't imagine, getting that phone call from the Giants and figuring out that it wasn't a prank call. So really happy for Jackson. Very excited that he gets to play with Abdul Carter. I guess Abdul Carter has a thing with Darth Vader, and Jackson's got the Anakin. Like, it works out, dude. It works out.
Yeah, it works out.
And then for the small select group of Giants fans who, weird that I saw this, but they posted a picture of Jackson holding the mountain lion, and the caption was WTF. I don't really know what the problem is. I mean, guys just having a good time, and those made for some really cool shirts when we beat Penn State. So it is what it is. I hope that group of Giants fan can kind of relax a little bit because you got your guy. Clearly, it was controversial at the time about not picking Shedeur, but 3 days later, that clearly was the right decision. So very happy for New York, and I hope to see Jackson really thrive in this role here.
Absolutely. Congrats to Jackson being a first-round NFL quarterback, first Ole Miss quarterback to be drafted in the first round since Eli. Obviously, Eli was drafted by the Chargers with the number 1 overall pick. Didn't want to go there. Giants pick him up, trade Phillip Rivers for that pick to the Chargers. History writes itself. A couple of years later, couple decades later, Jackson Dart is a New York Giant. He's got Eli Manning in his corner in college. He's got Eli Manning in his corner in the NFL. He's got the Giants in his corner in the NFL. Just like seems like there's a handful of Ole Miss fans that are just Giants fans because of Eli. Now they get to continue to be Giants fans because of Jackson Dart. The one thing that I've been saying a lot of, and not maybe on camera, but at least to other people, I compare Jackson Dart's game to Josh Allen a lot. Not to the sense that he is Josh Allen. Josh Allen is a one-of-a-kind football player. There's nothing like it. I mean, 6'5", 240. There's not much stopping that man. That's Cam Newton with a better throwing ability, pretty much, is Josh Allen. And I'm not saying Jackson Dart is that. He reminds me of him the way he plays, the way he runs the football, the way he throws it and takes shots, the way he leads the team. And I really think that's what Brian Dable was thinking in the situation. If we look back, Brian Dable was the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Buffalo Bills when Josh Allen was drafted. He developed Josh Allen. He made Josh Allen into the player that he is, taught Josh Allen that offense, moved on to the Giants. Seemed to do it a little bit there with Daniel Jones, who was kind of like, not to be rude here, but like a I guess a dollar store Josh Allen in a way with Daniel Jones. So he did it with Daniel Jones, and I think he can do it with Jackson Dart too. I think this is a very good pick for the Giants. This seems like a really good fit. You got another star receiver, Malik Neighbors, he can throw to. You've been building that offensive line for a couple of years. That defense in New York is starting to look better, especially on the front seven for New York. They pick up Juice Wells, a guy that Jackson Dart has thrown to in the undrafted free agency after the draft, and we'll talk a little bit more about a couple more of those guys. A couple shocks there that in those undrafted free agents, at least one for sure. But really happy for Jackson, really happy he's a Giant, and I know a lot of Ole Miss fans are really happy he's a Giant as well. So congrats to Jackson on being a first-rounder. But there was another first-rounder for Ole Miss as well. He went before Jackson, actually, and this was the guy that we talked about being a lock all year, even when people in the media didn't think he was a first-round lock. Everyone at Ole Miss knew he was a first-round lock, and it's Walter Nolan. He goes 16th to the Arizona Cardinals. I think that was a really good pick. I thought he was going to go the next pick to Cincinnati, and that's probably who Cincinnati would have took if Arizona would have passed on him. But Walter Nolan pops up on the board for Arizona. This is a pretty good pickup. Will Johnson, the corner for Michigan. I don't know if you've seen that clip, Zach. Will Johnson was very upset about not being drafted high and slipping in the draft. Arizona head coach said that Walter Nolan immediately asked for Will Johnson's number and said, "Let me talk to him, coach. I'll cheer him up. Let me get his number." That's something I didn't see from Walter Nolan. That side of Walter Nolan I didn't see at Ole Miss. Not saying he didn't have that, but Walter Nolan was a very secluded guy. Didn't really talk that much, even to the media. So that was something that I thought was really cool of Walter doing, and I'm really happy for him being a first-round pick. Randall Joyner, obviously, too, got his first number one overall, first-round draft pick as a defensive lineman at Ole Miss. Your overall thoughts on Walter and that pick for Arizona, Zach?
This is really big for Ole Miss, Cam, and I say that because, you look at the past stars of Ole Miss, and, yeah, you could talk about Patrick Willis, but, more relatively sooner, I would say, in the NFL timeline is your guys like Eli Manning, Laramie Tunsil, A.J. Brown, obviously, DK Metcalf, Elijah Moore, offensive products coming out of Ole Miss here. Before I get into this, can they please say Ole Miss at the draft and not Mississippi?
Please.
It's ridiculous. Anyways, but look, man, Pete Golding and Randall Joyner have now showed guys in the NFL and guys in college football that you can come to this school and develop into a first-round pick like Walter Nolan did. Because, yes, Walter was great on Texas A&M, but it seemed like he cleaned up a lot of the, rumored character issues and really became a dominant force playing alongside so many talented and veteran players here at Ole Miss. So credit to the coaching job from Golding and Joyner. And again, a message to the guys who are out there. Look, you can come to Ole Miss as a defensive lineman, edge rusher, D tackle. Guys proved it through every single round, really. You can get to the NFL here. So great job from Ole Miss for recruiting Walter, developing him, and getting him in this position. But look, man, Nolan never had any sort of character concerns at Ole Miss. Really looked to, humble himself and did his own thing, which I think it proved a lot to NFL teams. And, you turn on the TV and boom, middle of the first round, Walter Nolan gets his name called. And then the last thing I got here, huge shout out to Walt for taking a picture with me in Tangos last year. Really cool photo. So I just get to flex to all my friends like, oh my gosh, look, I have a picture with the first rounder. So thank you, Walter Nolan.
Absolutely. Shout out to Walter for that pick with Zach. That was the only two first rounders for Ole Miss in that draft. probably could have had 3. Trey Amos did kind of slip a little bit, especially into the next day as well. Didn't go high in the second round. He went 61st overall. Before him went Trey Harris at 55 to the LA Chargers. I thought this was a really good pick for the LA Chargers, considering they don't have a lot of receiver help over there for Justin Herbert. And we all know, if you watch NFL football, you all know Justin Herbert is a top-tier quarterback. I mean, he's in a tough division with obviously Pat Mahomes that he has to deal with every year. But this is a team that is a couple pieces away from winning that division. I mean, this is not saying that the Chiefs aren't just dominant, because they are, but we've seen the Chiefs lose games. And if the Chargers can keep adding pieces like Trey Harris to get Justin Herbert some weapons out there. I mean, they added Amari Hampton, former Ole Miss target there in the portal last year as well. Seems like a really good pickup, though, for Trey, a really good spot for Trey Harris to be at. I mean, Quentin Johnson really hasn't done what he's projected to do since he's been drafted over there in LA. Ladd McConkey bursted onto the scene last year. He's probably the receiver one, no doubt. They're not really having a receiver two there. I believe Josh Palmer left in free agency. They need a guy there that Justin Herbert can get the ball to and get some pressure off of Ladd McConkey. And Trey Harris can do that. He's not the burner Ladd McConkey is. Ladd McConkey, obviously a lot faster than people thought he was, a lot more crisp of a route runner than people thought he was as well. But Trey Harris, really good deep ball threat, really good jump ball threat. That's the type of guy that Justin Herbert's really been looking for. They don't really have a lot of tight end presence there either. Trey Harris can be your kind of hybrid tight end, kind of an Evan Ingram role where you just put him in the slot, throw him some jump balls. I think this is a really good pickup for the Chargers. What are your thoughts on Trey Harris to the Chargers, Zach?
Yeah, people knock the Lane Kiffin offense all the time. You know, they think it's kind of gimmicky. You know, you hear some of the comments across the NFL, but if you're a wide receiver, you're getting experience blocking. You're getting experience on the outside, on the inside, running slot there. And Trey's a guy who's proven he can do it all. The biggest question is going to come down to, can he stay healthy? I think it's going to be beneficial for him to get out in California. I know it sounds ridiculous, but there's a lot of high-profile trainers out there. And to get him into just a new sense, like he's almost taking a breath of fresh air here. You know, didn't have the best luck with injuries at Ole Miss, but it's a fresh start. He's going to be surrounded by professionals at all times, new workout coaches. So hopefully he can take, you know, that step in the right direction to secure his health. But like you said, man, Ladd McConkey is an absolute dog and a guy who can really take over the middle of the field. Similar to how Jordan Watkins did at Ole Miss, if you want to make comparisons. And that's when Trey can really be effective on the outside, you know, in a corner route, or if Ladd, you know, fakes a screen pass, go ball. You know, there's so many different options. I think it just opens the offense up. And yeah, Trey Harris, you know, you look at his body type and the skill and the footwork, yards after the catch. He's NFL ready. It's really going to come down to if he can stay healthy. But again, man, really excited to root for the Chargers this fall.
Absolutely. And just a little off topic, if you follow the Chargers any year, just see videos online, Justin Herbert's a very odd individual. I really think the clash of personality between the calmness of Trey Harris and the awkwardness of Justin Herbert is probably going to be really, really funny to see on the sideline. And if they ever do a Hard Knocks or anything like that, that'll be pretty funny to see between those two. Another other second-round pick, obviously, Trey Amos, like we said, 61st overall to the Washington Commanders. Really good spot for Trey Amos. You obviously go to a really good team. Marshawn Lattimore, rip to the New Orleans Saints for getting rid of him. But Marshawn Lattimore is their number one guy there. He can be behind him. There's plenty of room for Trey Amos to just sit and grow in this Washington team. This is the team that's probably going to win a handful of games again next year. Seems to me like this was probably the best place for him to go late in that second round, Zach. Don't you think? I mean, didn't go early in that first round like he thought he was going to. I mean, maybe could have slipped into that first round, but later in that second round, when you get into those deeper picks, you just start hoping that one of these good teams pick you up, and that's exactly what happened with the Washington Commanders here, Zach.
Perfectly said, and this is probably the best team that drafted an Ole Miss player, led by Jaden Daniels, a really good wide receiving core that we touched on in the last podcast. And Lattimore is a dude who hopefully can lead Trey Amos and show him the ropes a little bit. But Trey's been around, man. You know, he played at Bama. He played at Ole Miss, SEC guy through and through. He's going to go and make an impact. He's going to be a great third down defender, in my opinion, can guard the slot if you need to, and can still take away that big threat down the field. So happy for Trey. And this is a dude who's probably going to see the playoffs for, I don't know, man, the next 5 years or however long, you know, he's over there in Washington, DC. So very excited. Happy for Trey. And again, I would have liked to see him maybe go to the Eagles, Chiefs, or Ravens or Bills, day one Bills. I thought they were going to pick him. They opted with the Kentucky kid, but he's still going to contender. So that makes me, super happy for him and Ole Miss fans who can watch these guys when the months of December and maybe January come around.
Absolutely. And we'll talk a little bit in depth about these next two, and then the last two. We'll kind of just breeze through these last two and then talk about the undrafted free agents for you guys. A guy that slipped for me, Princely Umamielen. Didn't expect him to go that late in the third round. Didn't seem like he was going to go anywhere past like middle second to me. Don't know really what happened there. It seemed like going into all this draft talk, Princey was a lock first rounder at one point there, or at least an early second round guy. Don't know what happened much. I mean, obviously we talked about it last podcast, the cone drill at the combine didn't really help him that much. Slower 40, I guess, than most people would have liked from him. But Carolina, a good spot for him nonetheless. He's going to get a chance to play pretty quickly there on a pretty bad team there. Not knocking any of those guys, but not a great team out there in Carolina. He's going to get a chance to play pretty quickly for the Panthers. Your overall thoughts on Princely and where he ended up in this draft, Zach?
I think he's going to be really good friends with Bryce Young. These dudes kind of give off the similar vibe, and it seems like every picture and video I look, they're dripped out to the T, bro. So, I mean, on game day, I'll definitely be looking out. I'm trying to paint the visual for you guys. You look on your favorite NFL team's Instagram, and you got the guys walking through the tunnel onto the field. Just keep your eyes out for the outfits that are going to be coming here from Bryce and Princely, a guy who's known for his fashion. But truly a very serious player who I'm disappointed didn't get selected in the first or second, but the dude's going to play. We've said it all year long. Turn on the tape. Good personality. I think he's a guy who can help develop the culture there in Carolina, a team who might be good in 2 or 3 years here, but it's going to take some time. Bottom line is he's going to get playing time very quickly. So happy for Princely, and hopefully he can make an impact earlier.
Absolutely. I think this next guy also might get some playing time pretty quickly in Jordan Watkins. Drafted a lot higher than I thought he was going to be in the 4th round to the San Francisco 49ers. Other than obviously Jackson Dart, Trey Harris, I think those are a really good spot for those two guys. Looking outside of those guys, especially the back half of this draft, I thought Jordan Watkins of the 49ers was a really good pick by the 49ers. This is a team that really needs receivers. Obviously, Debo left. Brandon Ayuk, we talked about in the last podcast. I believe I kind of linked Trey Harris and maybe even Jordan Watkins at one point to the 49ers in that last podcast, saying that you kind of need a guy without Debo there anymore, and then Brandon Ayuk being the diva that he is. But I mean, your guy right now is Wicker Purcell's pretty much in San Francisco for Brock Purdy. This is a guy in Jordan Watkins who's very savvy, pretty much like Brock Purdy, a guy that's not really just going to wow you with his skill set or his physique or anything, but he's going to just show you on the field what he can do and show you with what his mind, his football IQ, what he can do. And I think that's what Jordan Watkins is going to do there. He lands in a really good spot with a really good personnel over there in San Francisco, a really good team that uses special team players really well. I think Jordan Watkins is probably going to play right away on special teams. We'll have to see if he can move into that receiver rotation, which I think he can. This is a receiver room in San Francisco that I think is hurting right now for receivers.
Yeah, you really nailed it all, Cam. I don't have much on Watkins other than within the first or second year of his career, he's definitely going to be a key factor in the Niners offense. So excited nonetheless. I think it's going to be interesting for him to experience the West Coast, probably a place he hasn't spent much time. But it was good to see him go in the 4th, man. Really happy that, a team looked at the film. I'm sure Jordan killed his interviews and realized that he's going to be a great player one day because of his attitude, his work ethic, and he's just a smart football guy. We heard it all year long. So very, very pumped up for Jordan.
For sure. And then obviously Jawan Jennings, pretty notable receiver there in San Francisco, and he wasn't a high draft pick. They developed him. I could see that a lot here with Jordan Watkins as well. These next two guys, the last two guys drafted for Ole Miss, Chris Pupal Jr. drafted in the 5th round by the LA Rams, and J.J. Pegues in the 6th round by the Las Vegas Raiders. I thought these two maybe didn't end up in the best places. Maybe Pupal kind of ended up in a better place than J.J. The Rams are a really old team. Didn't have a lot of younger guys on that defense or the offense. So they're kind of rebuilding there, kind of in that transition phase there in LA after winning that Super Bowl. I think Pupal will have a chance to show what he's got right away. Definitely probably going to have to add a little bit of size to be an every down linebacker, but we have seen undersized linebackers last in the NFL. Linebackers don't go high anymore. Middle, especially inside linebackers, don't go high in the draft anymore. They label them all as linebacker in the draft. I mean, unless you're an edge rusher, you're labeled as a linebacker, even if you're an outside linebacker. Middle linebackers don't go high. Pupal, 5th round. We said it in the last podcast, probably 3rd to 5th rounds where you see him. 3rd at the highest, 5th at the lowest. He goes at the 5th. I think the Rams are a good spot. Like I said, Zach, I think this is a good spot for them. On JJ on the other side, I don't really like that pick for the Raiders. I don't see Pete Carroll using JJ's skill set as much. I mean, Pete Carroll, obviously offensive-minded guy. A defensive-minded guy, but won't have much to do with that offense. Don't know how they're going to try to fit JJ, if they're going to fit him at all into offense, but happy for JJ, happy that the mayor of Oxford is all the way in Las Vegas and on an NFL roster.
Yeah, it was cool for Pegues because after he got drafted, he was literally just walking around the square in double decker. So that was cool. I'm sure it was a surreal moment. Interesting pick for the Raiders. I think, like you said, it's going to be worth keeping your eyes out to see how they utilize him on defense and offense. But man, 4th and 1, I want Pegues out there at least a couple times. Cam,
yeah,
come on,
push on Ginty, man. They took
yeah.
Ginty, so man.
I mean, I don't know if we touched on this, but the old state coach who was like, yeah, we should get a midget on the team and just throw him over the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
Classic.
Classic,
Absolutely.
Man. Classic. Mike Leach, man.
Shout out Leach. But Rams, first off, shout out to the Rams organization. It feels like they pick really good players who, again, it sounds very cliche, not just good on the field, but good dudes who care a lot. And Pooh Paul's a culture changer. You look what he did at Ole Miss. I said it on the last pod. Was kind of an underrated guy coming into last year's portal class and turned out to be one of the all-time favorite Rebels that I've seen during my time in college, along with his family. Really good family. All in all, happy for Pooh. And I hope that he can develop a little bit as a Ram and get some playing time, similar to how Princely is probably going to play quickly over there in Carolina. But look, man, good draft for Ole Miss. It's another step to prove to the college football world, hey, you want to develop, you want to be an NFL guy, come play for Lane Kiffin and Pete Golding. So it's been fun to watch these guys, excited to watch them in the NFL on Sundays. And, I'm ready for next year's group as well at the same time. So all in all, good draft, Cam.
Absolutely. And it's going to be very exciting, like you said, Zach, to see these guys transition. It's kind of this first group of that pro-ready mindset, that pro mentality that Lane Kiffin kind of installed. That's kind of this first group that's kind of going into the NFL. So we'll see if that pro mentality that Ole Miss kind of works on at their own facility here in Oxford works at the next level. Obviously, the guys drafted, program record, handful of undrafted guys. Won't go through all of them, but I guess the biggest shock for me was Jared Ivey going undrafted. That was just not where I seen going there. I figured we'd see Jared Ivey go somewhere past 3rd, 4th round. Didn't see exactly. I don't think he's been picked up yet. Has he, Zach?
I think, did Ivey sign with the Seahawks?
I think he may have. Yeah. I just don't think we put it. Yeah, we put it on our thing yet.
Yes.
Jared Ivey to the Seahawks, but nonetheless was a shock for me. Obviously, the guys that you assume that would even go undrafted and be picked up early. Bentley to the Colts, Caden Priest going to the Lions, Juice Wells, like I said earlier, to the Giants, John Sanders Jr. to the Dolphins, and Trey Washington to the Colts as well. Didn't see Fraser Massing get picked up. I don't know for sure if he got picked up either, but kind of shocking there. He didn't get picked up. I'm sure maybe down somewhere in the camp he'll get a shot because that's a heck of a punter, especially if you look at the film he really developed here at Ole Miss. But congratulations to all these guys, and really happy to see where these guys take the next step at the next level. Is that all you got on these guys, Zach?
Just couldn't believe Jared Ivey wasn't drafted. The dude can play anywhere on the defensive line, and he's an athletic freak. So shocking, but more motivation for him to go be great. And then happy that Isaiah Hamilton and Ivey can be buddies over there in Seattle.
Absolutely. And we'll transition a little bit to the other side of football on more current Ole Miss right here. 2 transfer pickups since the last time Zach and Dalen talked to you guys. Wyatt Williams, safety from ULM. He started his career at Delta State, if you guys didn't know. So he's been in this Mississippi area. And also, fun fact about Wyatt Williams, I played Wyatt Williams in high school for 3 years when he was the quarterback and safety for General Trash High School in Lake Providence, Louisiana. General Trash used to put a beating on this man, so I'm not going to say much there, but Wyatt was a heck of a player then. He's a heck of a player now if you watch the film. He's a hard hitter, man. He comes up and he lays the wood every time when he comes up for a tackle. He's a really aggressive safety. He's got the size that most safeties at Ole Miss in previous years hasn't had. And I really like this pickup for Ole Miss. I'm not sure if he'll play right away. Obviously, we have to learn the system. But this is a really good pickup for Ole Miss. Overall thoughts on Wyatt Williams before we move into this next guy and move on to some other talks?
Yeah, it's tough to evaluate truly evaluate a guy who spent time at Delta State and then ULM, obviously not a power four dude, but he's 6'2", 205 pounds, been surrounded by Southern football his entire life, and 100 tackles last year. That's a stat that I don't care what level of football you're in, it should open your eyes. Not only was he starting and playing healthy every single game, but he was putting up some numbers. 3 interceptions, forced fumble. He's a guy who's going to come in here and compete for a starting job. I'll tell you that right now. Every single DB and safety who Ole Miss gets in the portal has a chance to play this fall. So whether it's for depth or becoming a starter, awesome pickup for Pete Golding.
Absolutely. And then the next guy, Damian Taylor, running back. Obviously, Ole Miss loses Jordan Simmons to the portal once the portal window opens back up. And they replace him immediately with Damian Taylor from Troy. Shorter stature guy, but 221 pounds. And I'm not sure. I can't remember that TJ Oxley posted a tweet on X the other day when Damian got picked up, and it was like he was in a category with some of the elite backs that got drafted this year, some of the elite backs in college football. I think it was either yards after contact or yards per carry, somewhere in that realm. But this is a good pickup for Ole Miss. Obviously, you can't have enough depth at the running back position, especially with a position that gets hurt a lot. Probably won't see Damian Taylor playing right away at Ole Miss. This is kind of that kind of reminds me of that late Rashad Amos pickup for Ole Miss. But Damian Taylor may play more than Rashad Amos. But this is a really stacked running back room right now. Couldn't say that a year ago. Probably Logan Diggs or Kewan Lacey starting. Chicago Mills Knight was a double-decker this weekend. Is massive as always on the square walking around. Those are 3 guys that are going to play probably a lot of downs for Ole Miss this year. But Damian Taylor, along with Dominique Thomas, I could see these 2 guys. I mean, both similar statures with Thomas and Taylor in this category, in this position room. And I think both those guys, Thomas and Taylor, can find their way in. We all know Lane Kiffin harps on the blocking at the running back position a lot. Kevin Smith harps on that a lot as well for the running backs. I believe Damian Taylor's got the size to play in the SEC, and we'll have to see how it shakes out for him, Zach.
Look, I love Shikai. He's probably going to come on the podcast here in the next couple of weeks, but you can't have a true freshman coming in and being that RB3 or 4. You need a true guy who's proven he can compete at the highest level. And Damian Taylor is that guy. He rushes for over 1,000 yards last year. Pretty damn good. So you get him in, you kind of replace the kid who left, who kind of a weird situation there, but you basically took one out and put another one in. It was kind of a fair trade. So happy for Taylor. Again, dude, depth is the name of the game at running back. And now hopefully the coaches learned a little bit of a lesson after last year as to playing your best running back. So we'll see what happens with Taylor, but it adds more variety and another option here for Smith and Lane Kiffin.
Absolutely. And I think that's all we got for you guys for football. Ole Miss staying at 3rd in the transfer portal rankings, even picking up those little bit of transfers in the portal window. Obviously, other teams were picking up transfers as well during that window. So Ole Miss didn't really move much in that window. Told Zach before the pod, didn't see a lot of Ole Miss football ranked in the preseason early rankings. And those preseason early rankings are kind of just for watchers or people who don't watch football as much to kind of just have an idea of what teams are going to look like next year. So those rankings, obviously, we're months away from football. Don't matter too much. But for the first time since the end of the college football season, I've seen Ole Miss ranked in one of those rankings. It was an on-3 ranking. Ole Miss was 19th after the post-spring football ranking. So high expectations for Ole Miss so far, I guess. This is probably a handful of media and people that just seen the attention on Austin Simmons that Austin Simmons was getting from the media and the attention that the defense for Ole Miss was getting after reloading, not just kind of picking pieces here and there that were just to fill in places, but actually reloading and getting the players that you need to be good again next year. And I think that's what kind of everyone's seen on the outside and giving some Ole Miss a little bit of credit there on the football side of things. Moving in to the basketball side of things, we only have one thing for you guys for basketball today. And Ole Miss finally, again, picked up another transfer portal commit for Chris Beard on the men's side of things. Augusto Casilla from Brazil, from Butler, just transferred from Butler, 2 seasons at Butler. Didn't play at the same time as Klafke, but was at the same academy, NBA Latin America Academy. Don't know a lot about this guy. Hadn't seen a lot of tape on him. Obviously didn't play a ton of games at Butler. But, this is looking at him from the outside, and this is a guy that Chris Beard, typical prototype player, 6'8", 220, a guy that you're going to probably rely heavily on the front court during the season. He's coming from the Big East, so it's not like you're playing against scrums over there in the Big East. I think this is a good pickup for Ole Miss, especially in a season in a portal right now that's kind of dead. I mean, Chad Baker-Mazara was linked to Ole Miss. He commits to USC yesterday or the day before. It's kind of a slow period right now in this transfer portal window, but I think this is a really good pickup for Ole Miss, Zach.
I see his floor being where McKeel Brown-Jones was this year, on his ceiling being a guy who Davon Barnes was, but with even more scoring and rebounding ability. So kind of that role player that needed to come on the roster. And it feels like we're talking about these football players again, but the biggest thing is going to be, can this dude stay healthy? Point blank, period. He's been surrounded by professional basketball his entire life. He's got experience. He knows how to win. Can this man stay healthy? I will say last year, before he injured his knee, I think it was a season-ending surgery, but Butler played against Houston, the NCAA runner-ups, and he scored 11 points and got 3 boards. So he can play. Was taking on a much bigger role there at Butler until he got hurt, and has a lot of potential. And Cam nailed it perfectly, but literally these are the exact type dudes that Chris Beard goes out and recruits. These are Chris Beard-esque players. So excited to see him come here. If he can stay healthy, I think Duke can really come off the bench and make an impact, especially late in the year there, getting rebounds down the stretch, blocking shots, and overall defending, Cam.
Absolutely, and that's 4th pickup for Chris Beard. Got about 6 guys on the roster now that you can play next year. Probably want to pick up 2, 3 more, maybe even 4 to get that depth that you want to compete at a high level. Ole Miss not getting a lot of favoritism from the media since the season has ended, despite making the Sweet 16. I think it's a little kind of strange that that's not happening, especially with the national attention that Ole Miss gets just across the board on athletics. But obviously, Ole Miss did lose a lot. But all I could say for Chris Beard and Malik Dia and those guys at Ole Miss is all those tweets that you see, all that stuff you see, that's bulletin board material. Bookmark that, print it out, put it in your lockers. They're not believing in you right now. So, I mean, just like a year ago, TJ Oxley called it and said this looks like a second weekend team, and it was. A lot of people didn't agree with that. I kind of felt that Ole Miss team could put it together at some point. They did. Obviously, Chris Beard's a really good coach. We'll have to see what this team can do next year. Obviously, Coach Joe doing really good things on the women's side over there. They'll probably be a top 12, top 10 ranked team to start the season, and no telling what they'll do after that if they can really come together and make a run at that thing next year. But I think that's all we got for the basketball side of things. Like I said, not a lot happening in that realm with the kind of a slow, dead period in the portal right now for college basketball. With that being said, we'll move into baseball to kind of end things for you guys right now. Won't talk too much on this Vandy series. Ole Miss did take 2 this weekend. Surprisingly, Ole Miss kind of handled it really well those first 2 days. Didn't expect Ole Miss to kind of come out there and just dominate those first 2 games the way that they did. And just right away, Hunter Elliott, pretty good outing on Friday. Riley Maddox on Saturday, man, 7 innings. I mean, it seemed like every time there was an out, it was a ground ball to somebody in the infield, and Riley Maddox was just getting the ground ball to get out of there. Really good showing from Ryan Moorman coming back at the plate, kind of rough showing in SEC play. He finally hits another home run. He has a 2-for-3 day on Saturday. And then on Sunday, you drop a dud and you lose. You get run ruled. I mean, the guy pitching for Vanderbilt is just – he's shoving, but, he's not like he's up there throwing 98. He's throwing 88-mile-an-hour fastball, and he's hitting you with the changeup, and he's mixing pitches so good that it, like, even as a fan, like, I'm sitting there because I wasn't in the booth on Sunday, so I'm sitting there as a fan with my friends, and I'm just trying to figure out what this Vandy guy is doing that Ole Miss can't pick up because it's every time it was just 88-mile-an-hour fastball, changeup, high fastball, changeup, and he was just getting so many swing and misses on the Ole Miss team yesterday, and just probably the worst loss this season for Ole Miss outside of that South Alabama loss early in the season. But at this point in the season, probably the worst loss for Ole Miss on paper. You didn't score a run. I think it was only 3 or 4 hits in that game. You didn't get 2 until later in the game. Luke Hill had the only 1 hit for like 5 innings there. It seemed like just your heart wasn't in it. Not trying to put these guys down or anything, but it seemed like their heart wasn't in it on Sunday, and that's kind of been the story a little bit most of the year, especially when they're dominating teams. You can't finish them out. You saw it with Florida, you saw it with Kentucky. You saw them kind of slip up there in South Carolina. This is an Ole Miss team that's kind of stretched in the rankings, Zach. didn't move up at all in the D1 baseball rankings. I think moved up 9 spots, jumped up pretty high in the Baseball America rankings, but didn't move at all in the D1 baseball rankings, despite Oregon State getting swept at home, LSU going 2 for 2 during the week and losing in a run rule fashion in Northwestern State. I mean, you obviously beat Vandy, who's in front of you, and they stay ahead of you. Southern Miss is still ahead of you. Oklahoma loses their series, and they're still ahead of you. It seemed like it just didn't go right for Ole Miss baseball this weekend. In the back half of the weekend, although you won the series and then you won the Governor's Cup during the midweek. I mean, looking at everything, the RPI, Ole Miss went down in the RPI. No projection so far for the tournament, but Ole Miss was probably the top 2 seed coming into the weekend. Last weekend, not a host yet. And I thought if you won 3 games, including the midweek game that week, you probably put yourself back in the host conversation. That's probably not going to be the case for Ole Miss just because the way that this RPI system is working out. Just your overall thoughts on the weekend for Ole Miss baseball, Zach, and moving forward, we're kind of in the home stretch here, only 3 series left.
It's crazy. I can't believe how fast the season's going, but the rankings are weird to me. Kendall Rogers of D1 Baseball was trying to explain himself on Twitter, and it felt like every point that he made, you could counter with something that you just said, Cam. Another team lost a series or got run ruled by a G5 team. And I like, what? Really weird. And then the pitcher Sunday, you ever you're playing travel ball, Cam, you go to the game and the guy on the mound who you're playing, he's not throwing hard, and you think you're going to rake that day. And he just dices the team. It felt like that's literally what happened on Sunday. And to make matters worse, our guys are already in the mindset of, hey, we just shelled their best 2 pitchers. The bats are hot. We won the series. Life is good. Well, not so much, dude. 13-0. It just, as unfortunate as it is, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth, despite playing your asses off the past 2 games. Riley Maddox is elite. Hunter Elliott's finding his groove. The bats were great. And then you go and just lay an egg there on Sunday. The Mike Bianco ejection was pretty comical. I've never really seen Mike get that fired up. It looked like he almost wanted to fight the guy.
He chased him down.
Mike was fired up. Love to see that from the head coach. But the stat of the day for this one is 3 total hits and 6 pitchers used. Typically not a good sign, and that's what happens when you lose 13-0. But here we are again, man, looking down the barrel of the shotgun. You have to go to Oklahoma, and if you win the first 2 games, you probably don't want to lose 13-0 on Sunday, dude. You have to go out, get the sweep, or at least win the series and play them competitively every game. We said it before the pod, but in postseason play, in these regional games, if you go to Omaha, the game on Sunday gets you to the next round and ultimately the national championship. So hopefully the guys can learn from this and use it as motivation, especially those rankings, which I think are really skewed. It's going to be curious how they adjust over the next couple of weeks here, but interesting situation going on here with the Diamond Rebs.
Absolutely. And Ole Miss baseball will play again tomorrow. They play Austin P at 6:30 here at Swayze. That's kind of a game you get back on track. You kind of want to see Ole Miss run with that game, get back on track heading into the weekend down to Norman, Oklahoma. Ole Miss has got a handful of guys who are hot right now. I mean, Mitchell Sanford has been swinging a hot bat all year. Luke Hill as well. Will Furnace, though, and Austin Foley, man, I didn't see this coming at all this year. I mean, Will Furnace, you kind of knew it was there. I mean, you look at the swing, and it's beautiful. You look at his dad. You knew everything was there, but it just wasn't coming together in the previous 2 years for him. A lot of strikeouts, a lot of swing and misses against lefties. Just didn't really seem to pick up lefties that well. Not doing, just terribly great. I mean, just great at all against lefties this year. I mean, I think they bat 210, 215 around there. But that's really good if you look at the splits from the previous years where Will Furnace is batting 130, 090 against lefties and looking a lot better and just pushing the ball the other way against lefties. And Will Furnace's clutch hits, I mean, in the Governor's Cup gets a clutch hit as well. Seems like when Ole Miss needs a clutch hit in the game, it's Austin Foley or Will Furnace. And I think that's what you need when you make these runs. I mean, you've seen it when Ole Miss made the run at the College World Series a couple years ago. You got guys like TJ McCants, you got guys like Tim Elko who just step up in big moments and hit home runs or get on base. And that's what Ole Miss is going to need. I really like what I saw out of Riley Maddox this past weekend. I really like what I saw out of Will McCausland this past weekend. Obviously, Mason Morris didn't have the typical weekend that he has, but he didn't look bad. I mean, he came into the situation on Friday, kind of got shaken up a little bit. You move away from him to try to see if you can move on to him Sunday, and then you did move on to him Sunday, but you were so far behind it didn't matter. Will McCausland did look great after Morris, though. So I think Ole Miss right now, the big thing is we talked about it all year. You're looking for those back half of the bullpen guys. I mean, you got 3 to 4 guys in the bullpen that you can rely on, but after that, it's kind of nobody. So you're kind of hoping that you can find some more bullpen pieces to kind of develop throughout the season. And also Hudson Calhoun, I mean, he looked great in that Governor's Cup on Tuesday. He seemed like he was locked in there. He pitched a little bit on Sunday, I believe, or Sunday or Saturday. I can't remember exactly. I think it was Sunday. But he looks great. Oh, he can be another one of those guys for Ole Miss heading into the weekend. And that brings us into Oklahoma, a 3-game series on Friday, starting on Friday, finally back to those Friday series for Ole Miss. It seems like Thursday was kind of getting typical there. I mean, I like the Thursday series because you can kind of have the spotlight on you, but as a student and someone who's working all the time, I want those weekend series, man. I want Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But pretty good hitting team. I think Ole Miss kind of benefited last week from playing a not so good hitting team in Vanderbilt. Not saying they weren't great. I mean, they shoved. I mean, they shelled Ole Miss pitchers on Sunday with a lot of hits there compared to Ole Miss no hits or 2 hits, 3 hits in that game. But this is a team that's relying heavily on their Friday night starter to get the win for them, and Kyson Witherspoon. I mean, he's going to be a guy, 2.35 ERA, 92 strikeouts and 14 walks. This is a guy who's going to be shoving on Friday night against Ole Miss, and you saw what they did to J.D. Thompson a week ago. I mean, you stayed in the game when Liam Dool came to town. I think Ole Miss has what it takes to beat Kyson Witherspoon on Friday and then get to the guys after that. I mean, it doesn't seem like you have a lot of guys in this Oklahoma bullpen similar to Ole Miss. And then on the other side, on the bats, similar to Ole Miss, a couple guys in 300. They don't hit as many home runs as Ole Miss, but like I said, they're playing at home. I mean, this is a team that's fired up. Haven't seen Ole Miss since they lost to them in the national championship. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of kind of bickering back and forth about that, especially between fan bases throughout the week. Just your overall thoughts heading into the weekend against Oklahoma, Zach, in a series that I think Ole Miss needs to take to most definitely.
This is such an exciting matchup, and not only because are these teams coming back from the national championship back in 22, but it's kind of that welcome to the SEC moment for Oklahoma. Ole Miss has struggled the last couple of years, and they finally get a chance to test against a team who hasn't been in the SEC and a team they beat in the Natty. So quite a few storylines going on. But look, if you struggle against Witherspoon, which they're probably going to, you got to find a way to get in that bullpen late in the game, because when you give a team that momentum, the Friday night win, you look what Ole Miss did against Vandy. They took it right into Saturday, won the series, bang, over. And if you're Ole Miss and you want a chance to still host, you gotta win. You gotta win these series. And I said it earlier, but not only do you have to win at least 2, but that third game that you lose has to be competitive. There's no more 13-0 situations. I think the bullpen's going to be big this weekend. Guys like Mason Morris, McCausland, maybe we get a little more out of Walker Hooks. Maybe, Hudson Calhoun. He could be a guy who can go in and save the game in any of these days. So dudes need to start stepping up here as we get down the stretch, but at least 2. You need 2 here if you want a chance to better yourself for the rankings heading into the playoffs.
Absolutely. And before we leave you guys, I'll kind of look into these standings a little bit for SEC baseball. Ole Miss is tied for 5th. Obviously has the tiebreaker over Vanderbilt, and then Alabama and Georgia below them at 12-9. If you're Ole Miss, you want to finish the season at 6-3, 7-2, somewhere in that realm, so you can host a regional. If you want to host a super regional, which is still capable at this point, you probably have to go 9-0, 8-1, which is capable, but it's going to be tough. Obviously, series against Oklahoma. You go to State the next weekend after that. Surprisingly, State fires their coach today, so that might be a little easier series than what you thought it was, but it still will be tough. Obviously, it's a rival. Those State guys don't want to lose to Ole Miss. They don't want to get swept by Ole Miss, so it's going to be tough there in Starkville. Obviously, a really good stadium, probably going to be packed out a little bit with some State fans that are hopeful that they're transitioning to a new era after Lamonis is fired. But then ending the season with Auburn, a pretty good Auburn team that seemed beatable this weekend after kind of having like a hot 2 to 3 weeks there where they kind of surged in the rankings. They played State this past weekend in Auburn, and they didn't look really great at all. So, I mean, if Ole Miss can end this season hot. There's a chance to host a super regional, but I think the goal is for Ole Miss right now, finish this season 6-3 and go host a regional back in Oxford again. It's been too long since you hosted a regional in Oxford. You want to get playoff baseball back in Oxford for these fans, for players that are currently here, for the recruits looking to come here, for the coach looking to come here after Mike Bianco. I mean, I know Bianco's not leaving, but he's on the back half of his career. There's going to be pieces that goes into this, and Ole Miss past couple years we know hasn't done great. You want to see playoff baseball back in Oxford, Zach, no doubt.
100%. It's an absolute necessity that you go to Norman and handle business this weekend. Maybe get yourself back on track tomorrow night at Swayze, but sky's the limit, Cam. It's just going to be, how capable is this team and what version of the team wants to show up? Do you have the Friday night Rebs who win 8-3 or the Sunday Rebs who get blown out 13-0? Hopefully we get a more consistent version. Bianco's done a good job, elevating these guys to play their best. But we need just a little bit more to get to that next level heading into May and ultimately June.
Absolutely. I think that's all we got for you guys today. Is that all you got, Zach?
Yes, sir.
I think that's all we got for you guys. Again, congratulations to all those guys that got drafted. Congratulations to all those guys that got picked up in undrafted free agency as well. Ole Miss baseball, we're playing at 6:30 tomorrow, and then they'll head to Norman, Oklahoma this weekend, Friday through Sunday. That's all really going on in the sports world for Ole Miss. Keep an eye out for basketball portal news on our transfer portal track on the Ole Miss website. Anything to do with Ole Miss football, we know football is crazy in that realm as well. I don't think Ole Miss will add much more if they do add anything at all, but just keep an eye out. Pete's always posting sharks for high school recruits as well. So keep an eye out there at therebelwalk.com for all that. Follow me and Zach on social media. Follow the Rebel Walk on social media. Like and comment this video to keep up with the Rebel Talk, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to keep up with the Rebel Talk and any other videos that we put out on the YouTube channel. And with that being said, make sure to tune into therebelwalk.com with all your Ole Miss sports needs.